Okay, so now you have created an Xcode project, an iOS project, and everything. But before we actually start creating an application, we need to first talk about Swift. Swift is going to be the operating system that we are going to use throughout the course to create an iOS application. But first, we need to familiarize ourselves with how Swift works. To start working with Swift, we are not going to use an iOS application because we actually have another very interesting option right here in Xcode. So this time, instead of selecting create a new Xcode project, I'm going to go ahead and click on get started with Playground. Now, a playground is going to be created and I can name this. I will just call it my playground. And just as if it were an iOS project, I will select where I want to create it. And I'm going to be shown this playground right here, which is going to be where I can start creating variables and just start familiarizing myself with what Swift is. The playground is going to be quite useful as we familiarize ourselves with Swift, because just as we start doing things, typing things, we will be able to see the result on the right side. As you can see here, I have this string hello playground, and the result is going to be on the right. So in fact, it is going to be the exact same thing as if I were to print, and print is going to be a function which is going to take a parameter of type string, and if I were just to type something in here, or let's just change it to world, and as you can see, the result is shown to the right, and it's the exact same thing as just defining the variable string, because print is going to be a function that would print hello world, but as in playground, the variable value is going to be set to the right, is going to do the exact same thing. Now, the same thing may happen when I define a constant or a variable. To define a constant in Swift, you will need to use the let keyword followed by the name of the constant, for example, integer, and I will need to assign a value to it, for example, 70. And as you can see to the right, the value is printed as well. Now, a constant, in case you don't know, is an identifier or an identifier that you're going to be using throughout the code, but that cannot be changed. The value of that variable cannot be changed. On the other hand, if you had a variable which is defined with var, the var keyword, and you will call it variable, var, and call it variable, and you set a 45 as the value, you can later set another value to that particular variable, and that is perfectly normal and perfectly safe, because you can change the value of a variable, but you could not change the value of a constant. This, as you can see, throws an error because you cannot reassign a value to a constant that would define with the let keyword. That error does not happen when you define a variable. Another thing that you should know is what type these variables and constants are. Right now, I haven't set the type of the variables explicitly because I'm assigning a value. So when I assign 45, variable knows that this must be an integer. The exact same thing happens if I set string variable to hello. The string variable knows that its value is of type string. And so because its value is of type string, if I were to change its value to something like 5, that should not be able to be done because, you know, the string variable is a string. And this is the exact same thing as doing something like this, defining the type of the variable, string, explicitly, and then assigning a value. So it's the exact same thing to do the explicit calling of the type of the value of the variable, or just assigning a value which is of type string anyways. So to sum up, you can both implicitly set the type of a variable or a constant, for example, implicit value or type, implicit type, by setting the value to 30, and this should know that its type is an integer. The exact same thing would happen if I set explicit type and I set this to double and then assign, for example, 30. This, in this case, would be a double, this would be an integer. So in fact I could assign 30.5 and everything would work perfectly.